Okay, hi, my name's Nick. Awkward start. We are moving out of our house in 30 hours, and we're not ready. And I'm trying to sell a car and a motorcycle online, and our house is in chaos. And then I got up here, like 5 minutes from here, and I looked in the rearview mirror for the first time, and I saw that my wife had said, "Are you going to shave?" Because when I don't shave, 3 separate people at different times have told me I look like I shouldn't be near children. 3 seconds, so I shaved. So then I shaved real quick in the bathroom, and I cut my lip, and it's bleeding. So, wide shot, stay back. I don't know what else to say. By way of intro, there's nothing else to say. Anything like for my background, just watch the DVD from last week. I guess I will shave that whole intro off. But I've been married 17 years, and I grew up outside of the Catholic Church. I grew up very anti-Catholic. And we got married in 2001. And I guess we'll go farther back to that. When I was 8 years old, my buddy and I were walking in the woods in Carlton, Minnesota. If you guys know where Carlton is. We were walking in the woods and stumbled. This was, 32 years ago. So this was before the internet, before this phones still had cords on them. And we stumbled upon porn. And it was, I should caveat, anytime that you mention the word porn in a group of humans, suddenly all the guys in the room go, "What is this porn you speak of?" Naked? That's horrible. I'm usually pretty candid, and total side note as well. I was in Wisconsin speaking, and I said that sentence about porn, and a group of teenage girls started laughing, and then they giggled for a long time, and they wouldn't stop, and it kind of drove me nuts as a speaker, and then they eventually stopped, and when I got done with the whole night, they came up immediately, and they're like, "We just wanted to tell you that the reason," that they sounded like to me. "We just wanted to tell you that the reason we were laughing is because when you said porn, we thought you said corn." And then you started talking about how people get addicted to corn. And they view corn at a very young age. So now that's all I think about when I'm talking about it. People looking at corn stuff. It's so great. Anyway. That began an education at 8 years old of what a relationship could look like or should look like. And that's happened to all of us at different ages. Now, nowadays, the national average is 7 years old for a male to view pornography. That's the average, so sometimes younger and then sometimes older. But with smartphones, anything is available to any degree for free at any moment. So it's a different day and age. But what we don't realize is we begin to get an education. The minute we see something like that, you're getting an education. And so, with my upbringing, at 8 years old, you're not sexual at that point. There is an attraction of some kind. You don't know what it is, but you see people relating to each other in a certain way. And that day, I went home, and the family that I grew up in, my mom and dad. My mom, I didn't know my real dad because he was abusive, he was alcoholic, and my mom married a guy when I was 2, and so they got married when I was 2 years old. And so I saw that day, and I went home and I saw their relationship, and they were doing the best they can. It's not a judgment to them, but they fought every day of their marriage, so they divorced when I was 17. So I was getting an education on what love and relationships look like from them, and then from corn. That's the last time I'll do the joke, because you want to build and you don't want to keep saying corn. But I would see that, and then my aunts and uncles were addicts and abusive and just broken relationships, which is very, very common. And then I had that. And then my grandparents, they're in their 80s now, and they're still married, and they hate each other, but it's not like cute old person hate. It's hate. And they always have. And we were aware of it, that there was not love there. And then I had that relationship. I had porn. And so without knowing it, we all do this. We're always intaking data, and we're seeing, okay, that's one form of relationship, and this is another. And then there's one, and then there's that. And without knowing that I was doing that, if I had to choose, if anyone had to choose, broken marriage, fighting every day, miserable, and then divorce, versus what looks like just like carefree sexuality, you're always going to choose that. I mean, it's just a logical choice. If you're going to, addiction and abuse, or this, where everybody always looks happy. Or, make it to your 80s, you can just hope to not kill each other. or this. And so without knowing it, that's what I did. I just decided. It wasn't in those words. It wasn't that articulate. But as soon as I could be in a relationship, I wasn't going to emulate my parents. I wasn't going to emulate anything I'd ever seen at home. But I did try to emulate that, because that looked like what I was hungry for. And we all do that to varying degrees. We all do that. And it doesn't mean you have a porn addiction. It doesn't mean that you even end up in porn. But we all begin to try to form the best possible relationship we can. That's what we try to do. And we're always relentlessly pursuing it. And so I got married in 2001. So I got into high school and made all the mistakes you can make. And then I got into college and I made college-sized mistakes. And then I got married. And porn wasn't an addiction after the day that I knew that my wife would be my wife. It was a grace. It wasn't by my own. It was an addiction my whole life, and then it wasn't. But what I did was I just took that mentality and just brought it into my marriage. So I wasn't looking at other women, but my wife had to be what I wanted her to be, when I wanted her to be it. And without knowing that I was doing that, it just happened. Again, none of this is, like, just so you know, tonight can get really heavy. It does. There are really low points tonight, I hope. And what happens is you can start to feel like a weight on your shoulders, and that's good, actually. Because we do so much inadvertently that we don't realize the harm we're inflicting on our own souls, but on the souls of those closest to us. And so my wife and I were 6.5 years into our marriage. She had started to struggle with severe clinical depression. We had been living in China as teachers, and our marriage fell apart over there. We came back to the States. We didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know if we were going to make it. And intimacy was just out of the picture. It was just broken. But so was just a good relationship. We were just tanking. We didn't want to. Like, I set out, I told myself, I will never be like my family. I will not do relationships like they do. I will not do that. And I got married, and then I found myself in China 3.5 years into marriage. And it's the same thing as my family. It's just broken. She's talking divorce. I wanted to jump out a window. It was horrible. Everything was broken. And so we got back to the States and just didn't know. Wanted the answer, but life was a huge question mark. And like what I talked about last week, we ended up discovering Mass and meeting some really strong, good Catholics. And one of the first things Father Mike Schmitz ever did was say, you should come to this thing I'm doing, Theology of the Body. And I thought it was a theological discussion on the body of Christ. But my wife knew what Theology of the Body was. And she's like, we need to go. And I was like, oh, do you want to go to the theological discussion? That's great, I'll go. And we showed up. It was a 4-week series. And we missed the first 2 weeks, because that's just when we heard about it. And then we showed up late for the third one, because my wife. And, and we left 45 minutes later, just changed, just impacted forever. I remember where it was. I remember walking out of the door. I let her, she walked out first, and as I walked out, I just remember my mind just reeling. And it wasn't good. In fact, so I won't swear because I promised I wouldn't. But the first thing my mind said was crap, but not, that's the sanitized version. Like I saw probably for the first time who I had been and how I had lived, and not just how I had treated my wife, but how I viewed the world. And I saw for the first time what it means to be an actual man, what man means. And I saw not just what marriage should be, but I saw the way things should be. And it was like this picture of beauty, and then I was way over there. And I walked out, I remember thinking like, everything needs to die. Everything needs to change. And we didn't enter into like this amazing, blissful time. There was a lot of death that had to happen, but it had to happen. And through that process, we started listening to a guy named Christopher West. He's like the #1 Theology of the Body speaker in the world. He's just the best known. Listening to his 10-disc set and reading his books, and he came to Minneapolis. We went to a weekend, and then at one point the Diocese of Duluth sent me to get trained in Theology of the Body. I went to a week-long course with him, and I came back from that. So never the same. Never. I was the same person, but not really. I don't know how to like. It's not that I had been like robbing banks and shaving dogs or whatever evil people do. I don't know, that's the worst thing I can do. Whatever an evil person does, I had been doing that. I had been living as good as I could, but I got home different than I ever thought I could be. And so what I'm going to do, in our short time that we have, I'm going to do my best to give just a few of the key points that changed my life my wife's life, and saved our marriage, but saved my life. It changed the way I pay for gas. It changed the way I get on a plane when I'm flying to a gig, when you sit down between two strangers. It changed everything about my life. It changed how I approach tonight. It changed how I approach everything, including my wife. And towards the end, I hope maybe we can have time for questions. If there's a question you want to shoot up a hand and ask, it's fine. It's a safe place. It's fine. You can just interrupt me. I'm not going to get mad. It's totally fine. So with that said, we're going to divide this into two chunks. When I have like a 45-minute period to talk about theology of the body, I do what I'll do now for the next few minutes. Theology of the body, by the way, is just when John Paul II became the Pope. Every Wednesday, every Pope does a Wednesday audience. He comes out on the balcony. You've probably seen pictures. There's thousands of people in St. Peter's Square, and he gives a homily. He gives a message of some kind. So from the first time he walked out onto that balcony on that first Wednesday, John Paul II, for 5 years, began teaching something that he ended up calling the theology of the body. And basically, he began just incrementally, over a 5-year period, every Wednesday, just diving deeper and deeper into what it means to be a human. And he asks and answers 2 questions. He asks, what does it mean to be a human, and what will make me ultimately happy? And we all ask the second question all the time, every day. We're relentless, and we're supposed to be. I hope you know that, especially as Catholics. You should know God didn't make you to be sour. He made you to be happy. He made us for happiness. Because like I talked about last week, Mass doesn't look like we were made to be happy. It looks like just a convention for constipated people. All of them, including Father. Anyway, so he says, though, if you relentlessly pursue what it means to, what's going to make me ultimately happy, but you never stop to ask the question, what does it mean to be human? You can't find the happiness you're looking for because you don't know who you are. You don't know what you are. You don't know why you're here. And so he begins to ask and answer that question first. So I always call this the plan, the problem, and the promise. And it's also, John Paul II starts with a scene in Scripture where they're interrogating Jesus and they're asking him about divorce and remarriage. And they're trying to get Jesus to talk bad about either Moses or to contradict himself. So they're just trying to trip him up. That's what they're always doing. And so they ask him, they said, good teacher, what do you say to this? Moses gave us certificates of divorce. So what do you say to that? Moses let us divorce, and we know you're against divorce, so what do you say? And Jesus, like he always does in the Scriptures, he knows the hearts of the people questioning him, and so often he just doesn't answer their question, he kind of just answers the true question of their heart. And so he says, I love it, there's 2 parts. He says, oh yes, absolutely, Moses gave you certificates of divorce because of the hardness of your hearts. So pause, he just says, yeah, of course, he was dealing with you people. He was dealing with stony, cracked, dead hearts and doing the best he could to deal with it. And we do that with Jesus all the time, by the way. We come to Jesus and we're like, how could you possibly expect this of me? Don't you know the life that I've lived? Don't you know the mire that I'm in? And it's true, Jesus does know. But Jesus will always say, absolutely, I know that. But it's because of your stony, broken heart. You want to blame it and you want the church to change and you want my laws to change and what is right and wrong to change. It's your stony, broken heart. So Jesus says that. He addresses, yes, I know, Moses did. For the hardness of your hearts, he did this. And then he says this line, in the beginning, it was not so. And by doing that, he veers off from what they were going to take him to, and he takes us to where do we know in the beginning? It's the first words of the Bible. It's in the beginning. And this dates me and a certain generation, but if you've ever seen the movie Wayne's World, anybody? Okay, good. I speak to high schoolers and they have no clue, like at all. None of them were born when this movie came out, but we rented Wayne's World from the little store in Esco, Minnesota, and I never gave it back. I love it so much. Dana Carvey. I idolized Dana Carvey when I was a kid. So we rented this movie, and I've seen Wayne's World. There's no unquantifiable. It is infinite. So anyway, whenever they would do a flashback, do you remember what he would do? He would go doo doo doo, and he'd like move off the screen, and they would do a flashback. So that's exactly what Jesus is doing. Jesus says, yes, for the hardness of your hearts, Moses gave you certificates of divorce, but in the beginning, it was not so. And then he takes you. And the thing is, they would have understood it. They would have understood. They would have been like, oh, in the beginning, that's a specific phrase. They would have been taken back to the first moments of Scripture. And that's what he defines. This is a mucky mire, and I've come here to save. But let's at least stop and say, is this what he wanted the whole time? This? And I think of that with all of them. Whether when I was a Protestant, I used to ask, how could there's endless arguing about everything that Christ said. Was this the way He wanted it to be? Is this the beauty of the church? And as a Catholic now, I look around, I'm like, is this what He was going for? Like, I look around on Sundays and the constipation and the sour. I do. I look at it, I'm like, is this? And Jesus is constantly saying, no, absolutely not. In the beginning, this was not so. But when we're talking about sexuality, when we're talking about marriage, when we're talking about relationships, Jesus wholeheartedly says, no, in the beginning it was not so. Broken marriages, abuse, broken hearts, abandonment, single parents, none of that was intended. In the beginning it was not so. So he goes back to the Garden of Eden, and so just as a linchpin to keep reminding, there's this phrase, I use it with permission from Father Mike. He always says, when he's talking about theology of the body, if you are your body, then what you do with your body matters. So we are our body. We like to think that we're not. We're like, people think, I'm more of a spiritual person. I hate it when somebody says, I'm more of a spiritual person. I just want to slap them in their spiritual face. You can't. Like, you can be a partly spiritual person because we are a spirit. We are a spirit-body composite. If you separate the spirit from the body, we get death. We get, I think it's Chesterton or C.S. Lewis says, that's why we're afraid of ghosts and corpses. That's why we rebel against them. They're revolting. Why? Because it's unnatural. That was never supposed to happen. In the beginning, it was not so. The wages of sin is death. Death comes about because of sin, not because we're liberated into being with Jesus in heaven. This was the intent. The spirit-body composite. This earth, the body, was His intent. And you are your body. You're just not only your body. When I walked in, nobody said, hey, Nick's body is here. That would be weird. And objectifying, because look. And his lip is bleeding. Why is that? We are not, nobody would ever say that. Oh, hey, it's good to see your body. Things would get awkward so quickly. Why? Because that's off point. Like, yeah, I mean, this is my body, but this is me as well. I'm not, my soul's not elsewhere. I'm here. This is the only way to know me. You can't know me spiritually. So I don't like it when people say I'm I'm more of a spiritual. No, you're not. You're not. You are a spirit-body composite. And if you are your body, if this is you, and this is the only chance you get in this body, right here, then what you do with this body actually matters. The way you live your life in this body matters. The way you relate with your body with others matters. It just matters. If this is you, it matters. So what was God's plan in the beginning? We have in the first pages of Scripture, He sets the scene. There's air, there's sunlight, there's water, there's trees, there's all the good things. Then He creates humanity. And it says, let us make man in our image. And we've heard that a million times, but you need to stop and realize what that means. Like, He doesn't say that about anything else in creation. But we as humanity, we are in His image and likeness. We look like Him. And it doesn't say like when we're being nice, and when we're kneeling at Mass. No, just as a species, the human race is in His image and likeness. We look like Him. We come from Him. I met my biological father when I turned 18. And it was the weirdest thing to sit down at the table across from him. When I'm nervous, I fidget. Like I'll tear, like if we're at dinner together, and I'll tear up napkins or whatever. Just I fidget. And I got done with my first time meeting him, and I had a little pile of napkins, and I looked over, and he had the same pile of napkins. My mom would say, as a kid, she would say, "It's so crazy. You walk like him. You have the same. You look." She would accidentally call me by his name when I was younger. Just usually when she was angry. But I was in his image. I looked like him. I had mannerisms of his that I had never learned. I just had them. And as humans, we come from God. We are made from Him. We are in His image and likeness. So you get this first moment of Scripture where there is no, and again, this is difficult. This is the intellectual exercise that is tough for us to do. When there was no humanity, then there didn't have to be humanity. God said, you know what? Let's make a creature like us that can live and interact and love like us. And then we get male and female. You have to understand, God doesn't do anything on accident. He didn't have like a chunk of modeling clay and was like, we'll see how this turns out. I'll toss them down and just see if it works. But that's not, humans came about on purpose with a set reason. And it wasn't just like some arbitrary, like, I'm bored. It was, no, let's make something in our image. Let us make mankind like us. And that's the Trinity talking. And so it's so funny because this is pivotal. This is the key pivotal moment. This is why Jesus starts here. In the culture that we live in a time that you're not gender fluid, you're not gender confused, you're gender fluid. Because you can't be confused about anything, God forbid. You're just fluid. You just be what you want. You decide. I've listened to podcasts where in the same interview, this person transitions multiple times from man to woman, back and forth. And they're like, this is so beautiful. And I'm not, and again, we all have time maybe later to talk, I'm not dissing people who struggle with trans issues. I'm saying we live in a time that says, yeah, be whatever, be your God. You decide who you are. You decide what you are. And nothing can be furthest from the truth. And all of the struggle that comes from us wanting to be God. We see in the Garden of Eden what happens when you want to be God. And so Jesus takes us back to that on purpose. Because in the first moments when he's about to create these humans, it could have been anything. It could have been 800 genders. It could have been androgynous, just gender neutral completely. It could have been anything. We could have been anything. And he chose us. He chose male and female. We live in a culture that says there is no male and female. This doesn't matter. That's just chromosomes and DNA. It doesn't mean anything. But Jesus takes us back to that moment because it means everything, actually. And I grew up with not good masculine imaging, not knowing what a man should be. I grew up with porn again. And that was about it. I did have my grandpa, who was the greatest man I've ever known. And he showed me all the aspects I knew of true masculine love was from my grandpa. But other than that, I had a complete quandary. I got into college and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be. Because I started living in a time that said you can be anything. You don't have to, you're not supposed to be anything. Just be what you want to be. And here we have in the first moments of Scripture the exact opposite. And so I'm gonna tell you something. So this is a weird thing. In a footnote, I remember sitting at my desk reading Theology of the Body, and I read a footnote. And in this footnote, John Paul II makes one passing reference in a sentence. And I remember shutting the book. I pushed my chair back from the desk, and my mind wouldn't stop. I didn't touch the book for 3 weeks. I didn't pick it up again because of this one sentence. And again, there are many ways to present Theology of the Body, but this is just what changed my life. And so, I don't know if you guys know about Hebrew. The Hebrew language is a lot different than English. In English, we have so many throwaway words. Even the word love. I love my wife, and I love caramel. And we use the same word, but they're very different loves. Or they should be, anyway. They should not resemble each other in any way. And in Hebrew, so much of the Hebrew language is just packed. Like, a word will be packed with meaning. And a person who understood Hebrew, especially like a Jewish person back in the day, they would hear it and it would just unpack. It's a lot like if I say Christmas morning. Everybody who pictures Christmas morning, you all picture something different, but it unpacks. No one says, oh yes, December 25th, 7 a.m. That is Christmas morning. Technically that's true, but that's not what we picture. We picture when you're a kid, you wake your parents up at 4 a.m. and they're tired and grumpy and they're trying to drink coffee and there's wrapping paper and there's a big meal and the parents are fighting or stressed and elder relatives come over and then they bicker more and then they fight about football. There's a lot of fighting at my home. Probably most people's. There's always a weird element of grumpiness on Christmas Day. But that all unpacks the minute you hear it. And so what we need to do is understand that when God chose male and female, I don't know if you know this, God wasn't American. He wasn't speaking English. The Old Testament wasn't written in English, it was written in Hebrew. And so the words that were chosen are very specific. Now there are 2 Hebrew words for male and 2 for female. But in this passage that we're talking about, he uses specific words. And that means that what we're going to learn is that every male, actually there was a reason that not you personally, but the gender you're in was chosen. For every male, there's a reason for male. Because the words have meaning. They're not just biology. They're not just body parts. This will have the man parts, this will have the woman parts, and that's as far as it goes. That's what we've done in this culture. We boil things down to just sex. That's not why we exist. And so the Hebrew word for male is zakar. I think it's where we get the name Zachary. But zakar. Z-A-C-H-A-E-R. Or A-R, sorry. So zakar is the Hebrew word for male. Again, it doesn't mean just biology. It means so much more. And a Hebrew person hearing that would have known what that word means. And so so I read this, and there's this wealth of meaning behind what I am. Just where I live, if I have a job or not, if I'm successful or not, if I'm lonely or not, it doesn't matter. What I am is a meaning. I have a meaning just by the fact that I'm breathing, and my DNA says I am what I am. And the word zakar doesn't just mean male. He wouldn't have even said zakar, or what they would have heard was the word remembrance. Zakar means remembrance. The male means remembrance. And where do we hear remembrance in Scripture? When God establishes the Passover. This is a remembrance for the ages. A remembrance to the Jewish people. A remembrance wasn't an intellectual exercise. I remember. Hey, remember when? When they would celebrate the Passover every year, they weren't saying, oh, remember when this happened a long time ago, when Exodus happened? That's not what they were doing. Because a Jewish remembrance was something completely different. The Jewish people knew when they celebrated this remembrance, they were re-members. They were members again. So they were made members of this one-time event. That's what they believed. The Jewish people, when they celebrated the Passover, they celebrated it as they did for a reason. Because they were taken outside of time, the God who is outside of time, this is nothing for him to do. And they were made present and participating in this one-time event of the Exodus, of their liberation as his people. That's what a remembrance is. So then we flash forward, and Jesus says, do this in remembrance of me. And he uses that word on purpose, because he's celebrating a remembrance, celebrating the Passover. But he also knows that when you do this in remembrance of me, then you are made members. You are participating in this one-time event of my passion. That's why as Catholics we believe in the Eucharist, because that's what a remembrance is. He's not sacrificed again. He's not dying again and again and again. You are taken outside of time and made present in this one-time event. That's why Jesus says, I have eagerly desired to eat this meal with you. That's why he says that. But before there was the Eucharist, before there was the Passover, there was Adam. There was, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a remembrance. A living, incarnate remembrance in this world. And what that ends up meaning, for a male is supposed, actually not even supposed to, a male has within him the ability in a unique way to make God present. To make us present with God. That's what male means. That's what's written into the word male. And I remember reading that and shutting it and looking at my life and going, well, that hasn't been me at all. I don't know if I've ever taken a moment to make God present. Especially as a male, thinking about, oh, I'm a male, I'm masculine, this is what a man does. I've done the opposite at every turn. And it was terrifying, because I wanted to be a man. I wanted to be what I should be. But without that knowledge, there's infinite opinions of what a man should be. And in sometimes it's muscles, sometimes it's a nice car, sometimes it's money, sometimes in Wadena, Minnesota, apparently it's very masculine to have really nice cowboy boots. I was speaking in Wadena, and it was as I'm speaking, I'm just thinking about this. Hey,
hi.
Hey, welcome back.
Someone decided to take out a very nice buck.
Oh, nice.
Pretty car.
Oh, sweet.
Don't go to.
Was it you?
No.
Oh, well, either way, you're going to hell. Oh.
Hey, that's a confession.
Sorry, that's what's happening. So anyway, what that ends up meaning then is that behind the male, like the reason for male, no matter what you accomplish, no matter what your status of any kind, and we're told this all the time, but somewhere in our brains we say, well, yeah, but I still have to be this, I have to be a man. You are a man. If you're a male, you are a man. Are you done?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Cookie? Well, no, if your chromosomes say male, if you are a male, then you were made, not even you're made to be, you are a remembrance. You have it within your very reason for existing to make God present in a way that no one else can. You have it within you to wherever you go, whether it's your workplace, or it's to the grocery store, or it's to pay for gas, or you get on a plane, or you go home to your wife. You are made. You have it within your fiber, your framework, to make God present in every situation that you are in. To bring Him there. To remember God to the world. To make present. That's what you are. For the rest of your life. Now, if you jump ahead, Jesus comes as a man, and we see what happened to him. And I can always see it in the male faces, because they're like, oh, I see where this is going. This is not fair. And normally the wife is like, see, I told you. It's fine. I see the elbows. It's no big deal. But that actually means the cross for us. Do we have one here? Is it behind there? Have we? Oh, there it is. Okay. So for a man, because we know, what does a man do? We actually have a second man. We know what the second man did. We have the cross. That's what a guy does. You die. It's what you do. It's what a male does. He gives and gives and gives and bleeds out, and then he dies. And he fulfills masculinity. If it were otherwise, tell me, but it's not. You can't get around the cross. Because Christ came to show us. And we know by what Christ does what a man should be. So I was telling men, never be more than arm's length away from a crucifix. Never. And not a cross with him off of it. I know he resurrected. We like to think of that, especially as men. We're like, yeah, he came out of the tomb. But he died first. He bled. This is us. And so you go through your day and you're like, shoot, I forgot. Shoot, I'm not living. What am I supposed to be? You just have this within arm's reach. There have been times that this metal has been just digging into my palm. Trying to remember, like this is when I'm mad at my wife and my kids for no reason. And I'm just a grumpy, sour-faced jerk. I get this out, and this is what I am. This is what I'm supposed to be. And so for men, and we could go for weeks and months and years on just that one word. That is what we're supposed to be, guys. And it's not like it's a shame thing, like, oh, you haven't been what you should be. Because I felt that fear, that weight, and then immediately I was like, wait a minute, but this is the best thing ever. Because for the rest of my life, every morning I get up, I know my course. I know why I am here. And when the world mistreats me, it's par for the course. Jesus said, in this world, you're going to have trouble. They hated me, they're going to hate you. But never fear, I overcame the world. Christ went to the cross. He went there first and worst. So every man can know, I'll follow those steps. And that's what we're made for. That's why you have an entirely restless gender. Confused gender of men. Why? Because we don't know what we are. We don't even know our name. We don't even know why we're here. And you can see in the lives of the men that know. Because they are alive. And I'll tell you, the day that I just decided, no, I suck at this. I'm not good at this. I'm not anywhere near where I should be. But just trying is the most exhilarating thing. I tell men, get up in the morning, get the kids off to school, get to work overtime, come home, cook dinner, feed the family, put the kids to bed, do the dishes, massage your wife's feet, and shut up about it. And I'm very unpopular for that reason. With men are always like, I hate you so much. My wife heard that, you idiot. Years ago, I made the mistake of watching, just randomly, it was like 10 years ago. No, more than that. I watched a YouTube tutorial on how to do a good foot massage. I just thought, I'll surprise her one night. And so I did. I practiced on myself. I got lotions. And I got really good at it. And so then one night, I had everything hidden by the couch. And every night, we'd sit and watch TV or whatever. So we would sit down, and we were just sitting there watching, and I grabbed her foot and I put it up there. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, shh. Lotion, and I massaged her feet. She's like, oh, that's nice. I don't know why I said she doesn't talk about that, but that's in my head. So I did both of her feet, and she's like, why did you do that? I'm like, oh, I don't know, I thought it'd be a nice thing to do. I wanted to surprise you. She's like, thank you. And now, every night since, for over a decade, we'll be watching TV, and without a word, her foot moves. She doesn't even look at me. She's like, you know what? Snap to it. This isn't a lie, there have been times, I don't know if I have permission to say this, there have been times where like it's late and I had a long day and I'm massaging and I fall asleep and she's always just like I love you. She'll do it all the time. She kicks her foot. Do your job! But this is the thing. At the end of the day, when I'm tired, when I feel like I'm exhausted, I can either do what is good for her or what is good for me. And I have that choice. And I have a crucifix right here all the time because I know what the answer is. I do. But I am never happier than when I do that. My heart beats the strongest when I do that, when I die. And it's paradoxical, but it's what we're made for, men. It's what we're made for. It's why He invented us, to make God present, even when in no way should He be there. Even when there's no logical way that His love could be there, we bring Him there. That's what we're made for. And I would say if we stopped there and all of the guys in the room we walked out and lived that, then everything would change. Like we would transfer, it would echo into eternity, like in Gladiator. That's what would happen. But it takes us a while, like we're slow. We're just, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's not even a diss. It just takes us a while to do things. It's no big deal. So I would say, men, if you can't jump on this and understand this, then both for men and women, it's equally as important to understand that just as much as zakar, the word for male, has all of this meaning, equally so, the word for female is just packed with meaning. So ladies in the room, you, from the day I was 8 years old, I started receiving messages of what you were for. Not even like who you were, but what you were for. And every woman in here has felt that. Every woman in here has felt the pressure, the label, the image, the words of what you should be. Not even who you should be, what you should be. And all the while, every time your heart has beat, every time you've taken a breath, all your life, you've still been what God made you to be. You already are it. And so it would behoove us to understand this, man. But if we can't, if it's just, I'm not ready, you at least have to, from here on out, understand what female means. Because the Hebrew word for female is negava. So we have Zakar and Zachary. I've never known any negis or anything like that. Not yet. Maybe in the Jewish world. But so negava actually doesn't mean just woman. It doesn't just mean she has the body parts, the woman. The word for woman, the word negava, the word for female actually means to be open. Technically it means to be punctured. That's the technical, that's the force behind it, is that you're punctured. But the idea behind the word negava or punctured is to be open, to be receptive. So if we pause just at biology, just in human anatomy, we do actually have one who initiates or gives. We say the donator. You have the image of God the Father makes God present, he gives. Even in the act of sex. The male can't enjoy the moment of climax without actually giving himself away, his DNA, his actual self. Just by nature, the male gives of himself. Can't even stop it. And the woman, just by nature of the relationship, receives. That's just biology. But because we're not just biology, we're spirit and biology. On an even deeper level, the Trinity says, let us make man in our image. Let's make a creation, a creature that looks like us, that lives like us, and interacts like us. This eternal exchange of love, where the Father gives to the Son, and the Son receives that love, but in doing so is also giving himself, and then that love is so real that it is the Holy Spirit. That's like a classical way of understanding the Trinity. Just that relationship of eternal gift and receive. Then that Trinity says, let's make something like us. Okay, what are we going to start with? We'll start with somebody that image and make present God. So God the Father. So we have the giver. And in all ways, he is made to give. Biologically, he's made to give. Anatomically, he's made to give. But in his very nature of Zakar, he is made to give. That's what we do. We give. And then, because of the nature of the Trinity and the relationship, we have a giver and then we make a receiver. We have one who receives. And written into your very nature, anatomically, yes, absolutely. But beyond that, you're made to receive. You're made like antenna, just to receive. You are very receptive. And because of that, that means you were made to receive one thing. You were made to receive whatever God intended. Again, none of this is accidental. Whatever God intended this man to give, you were made to receive. Nothing else. And since we've already established that the male was made to be a conduit of God's love, and that means the only thing you're made to receive, the only thing you ever have to be open to, is God's love. Because that's what every male is made to give. That's it. That's it. And if you look at the way relationships work, there's a quid pro quo, there's pressure. There is, well, I have to do this. Whether it's physically or not, I have to be this, I have to do this, I have to act like this, or say this, or look like this. That is all because of the brokenness of men not knowing who we are. Of humanity having forgotten what it means to be human. That's the first question John Paul II asks. What does it actually mean to be human? What does it mean to be a male? Well, it means you're a remembrance. And if you live your life fighting that, you cannot and never will be happy. But if you live your life saying, okay, I know who I am, I know what I'll do, I know who I'll be, and then you live as somebody pouring out, you transform the world. And so in my marriage, I read that and I knew instantly, okay, I've taken from my wife my whole life, our whole marriage. I've taken. I've expected. I've pressured. I didn't realize that I needed to just give and give and give and give and be happy with that. And when I decided to do that, everything changed for me, but it also changed for my wife. Because I had spent 6.5 years expecting of my wife and pressuring from my wife. And my wife had grown distant and cold. She had grown closed. Why? Because you're supposed to receive only gift, only giving. That's what you're supposed to receive. In a marriage, the wife is supposed to receive gift. That's it. Not taking, not grasping, not forcing, not pressuring, not obligation, just gift. The husband is made and will be happiest if he is a gift. And when you are that, the woman is supposed to receive that. In fact, we have Ephesians 5, which has been used to beat women over the head forever. Well, we skipped the beginning. We'll just skip the husband's part. We'll just say, wives, submit to your husbands. Wives, submit to your husbands. And if you haven't heard it used in your own life, you know that it is used in marriages. Woman, I am the husband, you submit. Very conveniently forgetting the bulk of the passage, which says, men, husbands, love your wives. How? As Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. Wives, let him do that. That's what that passage actually says. You don't need deep exegesis. You just read it. Well, there's more than that one sentence about wives doing what they're told. Oh, okay. I didn't know. But there is. It begins with, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church, because he is the groom and we are the bride of Christ. And in all things, we receive from God. And so the one who is made to image God and give like God is supposed to do that. Just die for her. Wives. Submission, sub means to come under. So wives, come under the mission of your husband. And your husband's mission is to live and die for you. And if there's any doubt, because the men in the room are like, okay, shoot, how do I find a way around this? How do I argue with him on a break? And the wives are like, how do I shut him up and not think about this? Okay, here's the thing. If there's any doubt whatsoever, we just look at the cross. We just look at the cross. Because we know what a man does. We saw what a perfect man does. And it's not that it's always death. I mean, think about it. Jesus was on earth for these 33 years, and 3 years was his public ministry, and a lot of it was amazing. His first miracle was booze at a wedding. Come on! I follow that guy. It was Guinness. Anyway, Guinness. He would walk down the street, and lame people would walk, and blind people would see. And then they'd get up. I think I said this last week. 5,000 people forgot lunch one day. 5,000, actually it says men. 5,000 men forgot lunch. And what does Jesus do? Okay, we'll make food. It was amazing to be around that man. It was good. He gave and gave, and it was life. And he wasn't miserable about it. He was like, all I do is work and make food for you guys. 5,000 idiots. Seriously. Somebody does. What can I do? We got 5 loaves, 2 fish. Watch this, guys. Watch what I can do. He showed us what a man does. It defies the laws of nature. That's what masculinity looks like. But when it really comes down to it, we don't ever say that, when we tell people about Jesus, we don't ever say, oh, well, you should become a Christian because a long time ago Jesus made wine. We don't say, well, because he healed a blind man or raised a guy from the dead. What do we say? Because he died for you. Because Jesus died for you. Because that moment of his death on the cross is everything. And it became everything because a man said he would lay down his life and fulfill what masculinity is, to show the world what a man is. And he redeemed the entire human race by that act of willfully laying down his life. In fact, at one point, Pilate's like, I can take your life from you. And it's such a man line. I love it so much. It's this scene where he hasn't said anything, he's being all humble. And Pilate's like, I can take your life. And he's like, you can't take my life. I gave you my life. I laid my life down. You can't take it from me. That moment of power, that's what I want to be. No, you're just letting people trample you. You can't trample me when I've laid myself down. It's not trampling. And so, again, when a man does that, then a woman can be what she's made to be and just receive. well, but then she's just gonna say okay and just take and take and take. Well, A, you would think that, and B, that might happen, because that's what they did to Christ. They just killed him. After all the good that he did, they just killed him. But what I found in my marriage, and what I've seen in so many marriages, is that when a man just says, okay, you know what? I don't need anything, I'll just give. When I said to my wife, so I went to this Theology of the Body, where are we at? Is it 7:30? That clock's way wrong, so is that right, 7:35? Okay, good, we're good. I went to the Theology of the Body training for a week, right? And Sunday was awesome, because you get there and there's all these people from all over the world, and we're all, it's Christopher West. And we were up in St. Malo in Colorado, and John Paul II had stayed there, and it was awesome. And so we were all excited. And you're up high altitude, so you're a little high anyway. I'm so tired. And then Monday is cool because you're just learning the beginning things about oh God had this great plan for humanity. And then Tuesday happened, and I say everybody has to have their Tuesday. And Tuesday morning came, and then he just dove into the junk. And I spent all of Tuesday in the back just crying. I cried all day long. We'd have lunch breaks and people would come over and be like, there. Because I started to see, I have not been a male. I have not been a man. That's why we're tanking. Because I'm just ruining things. And not that she's perfect. But I saw what was on my shoulders. John Paul II said, it is first and foremost the man who loves, and it is the woman who is loved. Because God is the first and foremost who loves humanity. And he loved us before we ever loved him. When we were yet sinners, he died for us. That's masculinity. And at one point, Christopher West says, man, some of you in this room have wounded your wife so badly in your marriage that you need to go home and give her 14 years of celibacy to show that you're there for her and not her body. And if you're not willing to do that, you don't love her. And I remember just feeling just the slow push of the knife into my heart. Probably the worst day of my life. And it's just an upswing. And I know right now some of you are like, he was funny in the beginning. He was like Eeyore. But I got home, the week got better and whatever, I made it home, and when I got home I walked in the door and I was like, Jason, just sit down. Just sit down on the table, I want to say something. So she sat down and I said, honey, I've taken 7 years from you. And I've literally taken from you for 7 years straight. So the least I can do is to give you 7 years of celibacy so that you know that I'm in it for you and not your body. And then I prayed that she wouldn't take me up on it. Deep, groaning prayers. No! On the outside I'm all sacrificial. On the inside, don't do it! And there was this pause, and my wife said, okay. I said, no! Son of a biscuit! And so we entered into a super long time of celibacy in our marriage, where we just decided, no. If we can't do this right, we won't. I'm done taking. And it was the craziest thing. My wife had grown very cold and very distant from me. And we'd sit on the couch, and I wouldn't, I'd massage her feet because I had to at that point. And I'd be like, hey, but we're not good. She's like, do it anyway. So I'd massage her feet, but there was nothing. We weren't romantic in any way. We were brother and sister. And for me, it became this, every time there was an urge, there was an attraction, I could just be offer myself by stepping back. And for me, it became this amazing time of strength, actually, and purification. But I began to see my wife, actually like me again. And actually start to love me again. And it was visible. You could just see a change in her relationship to me. Because I had stepped back. Because I just said, I took, and I'm done taking. It got to the point where then she began to fall in love with me. It's like, what? But I recognize all the gifts you give me now, but I want to give to you. Every one of us has had somebody do something really nice for us at some point in our life, like a super nice favor, give us a big chunk of money, something like that. And your immediate response is like, well, what can I do for you? And that's good, actually. That should happen. Because when somebody gives of themselves, it plants a seed and it blossoms. Often immediately. Somebody does something sacrificial and you immediately want to be like, I want to do something back. How can I give? And to the greater degree of the first gift than the greater degree of the response. Think about it. Somebody gives you $1, you're like, oh, okay, I didn't ask, but thank you, I'll take it. But if somebody walks up and gives you, 10 grand, you'd be like, oh, wait, what? Wait, why? Oh, no, just because I want to give. Whoa, why? What can I do? What do you want? What can I do for you? And when somebody gives their life, that just awakens your human nature, the good side. It awakens you. And it's supposed to, especially in a marriage, in the most intimate of relationships. That gift awakens life. It brings about life. A gift of self always brings about life. It does. Think about it. So the Father loves the Son and gives himself. And the Son receives that love, and in doing so is also giving himself back. And that love becomes so real that it is the Holy Spirit. So that Trinity says, let's make man in our image. So we have a male who actually gives of himself. But the woman receives him into her. But in doing so is also giving of herself as well. And that love becomes so real that 9 months later you have to give it a name. Have you ever thought about that? That the first commandment in all of Scripture is be fruitful and multiply. And he doesn't mean grow bananas and do math. He just creates humanity. This eternal exchange of love, this intimacy of all intimacies, creates. And then says, no, you go do, literally, go do it. Go create as well. Be fruitful, multiply. Make your love more than just how you feel against each other, but make it real. So it is so real that it becomes another one of you. That is what we're supposed to image. And again, we don't have time. Your mind probably is like, oh my gosh, that pertains in so many ways. But just in the male-female relationship, you see the way Christ related to his church. What did he do? He came and he gave and he gave and he gave, and they killed him and he just gave and bled out. And he died for those around him. And what did his closest followers do? They just turned around and died as martyrs as well. They received that love. For 3 years, they just followed him around. They didn't do crap. Think about what they did. They just followed him around stupid. Asking stupid questions all the time. They've been with the Savior for years, and you're like, who's better in heaven, me or you? Like, just dumb. And what do though? They see this ultimate act of self-sacrifice. And what do? I'll do the same. Crucify me upside down. Boil me. Exile me to Patmos. I don't care. I'm gone. I received everything I've ever needed. I'm yours. I'll give myself back. That's what humanity is supposed to live. We as humans are supposed to be Trinitarian. Like, we're supposed to live Trinity-type love. But we separate it. We're like, well, that's like God love, and then there's like human love. That's gibberish. God is love. There is only love or not love. You are either living like God would, or you're not. You either love your spouse, or you don't. No, it doesn't mean you're perfect. You can try. It doesn't mean you're not trying. Because I was trying to love my wife my whole first 7 years of our marriage. Just didn't know how. I'd never seen it. I'd never been told. I didn't know who I was. My wife didn't know who she was. We had a lot of pressures from society to be what they said we should be. And I tell you, we're married 17 years now. So that was 10 years ago. And I can't believe we are. I can't believe we exist. And I was talking about this in Pierce, Minnesota the other day at the Catholic school, and one of the kids was like, oh, nice shameless plug. He said it out loud. Like, oh, way to brag on yourself. And I remember like, did you not listen for the last 9/10 of the talk? I was horrible. I have done terrible things. But when you know why God made you, and you surrender to that, you just say, I'm yours. Everything changes. And I would never go back. I would never try to be that again. So that was the first part of theology. I don't hear TOB speakers talk about that very much. That's just a footnote. There are way better things, but that is what has transformed me. That's what changed my life initially. So when God makes this situation, this perfect, there's 2 naked people in a garden. That's like the perfect image. Obviously it wasn't in Minnesota. It's so cold. The fruit's frozen. But God creates the perfect environment. The climate is great, there's fruit everywhere, it's just wonderful. It's just perfect. And then he tells Adam, he gives him basically these 2 jobs. You care for the garden, cultivate, and then guard. And we pass over that. Guard implies something to guard from. It implies an enemy. And we see in the scriptures what happens. And we always picture it that like Adam went off to work, just like no clothes, just a lunchbox. Like, he goes off, and then because the woman is less intelligent or whatever, the serpent knows to come attack them when Adam's off. Because if Adam was there, it would have been totally different. That's what we get painted. That's what we hear talked about. It was just couldn't be furthest from the truth. But a little pause on what serpent, in Hebrew, the word for serpent is nahash. Nahash actually means it's the same word as Leviathan, a sea monster. It's the same word as dragon. We picture like a little garter snake, which I never understood because even without shoes, you just, and it's dead. And why are you talking to the snake? But in the scene, that doesn't have to be pictured that way because the word nahash is also the dragon. So the dragon enters. It just says that the serpent approached them and begins to talk to them and says, hey, you should eat from this tree. And you know the whole story. And convinces them to eat of the tree. And Eve tries. No, but God told us not to. Did he though? Did he really? Maybe you misunderstood, because he's just keeping you down. That's all he's doing. He's just keeping you under his thumb. And he knows for a fact that if you just do what you want to, you'll be just like him, because that's what he does. He does everything he wants. And real freedom is just doing what you want. Just do that. Just reach up. You don't have to wait for him to give it. Just take it. It's right there. And we have that Eve takes of the fruit and eats of it. And then, in my opinion, we have the saddest words in Scripture. We have Eve took of the fruit and ate of it and gave it to her husband, who was with her. Adam was there the whole time. Adam the donator, Adam the giver, Adam the one who lays down his life, Adam the image of God the Father, the giver of all good things. When the dragon approaches, Adam steps aside. Adam lets his wife do battle. And it's not that she was weak. That is not how it was supposed to happen. They were supposed to be together in this. And he just shuts up and stands aside. And that was our heritage as men. All through Scripture. All through the Old Testament. That's what masculinity brought into the world. And that's crushing if it ends there. I don't know if you've ever read Paradise Lost by John Milton. It's this long, thick poem. And he describes the fall, and he describes Adam and Eve feeling just crushed under the weight of the sin and the separation from God and having to leave Eden, and they're sitting there in the grass, in the everything they have to leave, and they're just broken and crushed. And God sends Raphael, and it's this amazing scene. It's like a movie. It's weird because it's from the 1600s, but it's just like a movie. He sends Raphael, and Raphael swoops in and grabs Adam and takes off, and then they start flying, and it's so crazy. It's just imagery. They fly over human history. They fly forward in time. And they're racing over all the wars and the rape and the murder and the evil that happens because of what Adam just did. Because of stepping aside and not being God when he should. This is what happened. And he's taking Adam on purpose to show him what he did. And as they're flying over everything, Adam is just crushed. Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, I can't take knowing what I just did. And as they're flying along, way off in the distance, you see this object rise up, and it gets bigger and bigger, and they zoom up, and as you're getting closer, there's a hill, and there's these 3 crosses, and they zoom right up till they're hovering in front of Christ on the cross. And Raphael says, this happens because of what you just did. This is God. This is what he can do with what you just did. And it's this moment of redemption in the first moments of sin. And we actually have that in Scripture. It's called the Proto-Evangelium. The first Messianic prophecy happens in the moments after the fall. Because you get the curse. You're going to have to till of the earth and sweat of your brow. You have to leave Eden, this perfect place. You chose not perfection, so you have to leave. Pain in childbirth. All of these things that God's saying, like, this is what's going to happen now. Those are crushing weights. And then he immediately says, the serpent will bruise his heel, but he will crush his head. In the first moments of everything they just did, God says, it's going to be okay though, because I got this. You trust me. These are consequences. This is what happens. When you don't trust me, death happens. This is just, I'm not doing this, this is what happens. But I will find you, I will rescue you, and will crush you. And so for us, we have maybe have lived broken relationships, just broken marriages, broken dating, broken high school, broken college. Just brokenness all around you. If it isn't in your life, God bless you. But you've seen it in most of the others. And God comes into that and says, yeah, but in the beginning it wasn't so. This is what I have envisioned for you. And if you let me, nothing can stop it. Nothing. Nothing can stop my plan except for you just saying no. If you'll trust me, men, if you'll trust God for what masculinity actually means, there's nothing he can't transform. I remember being right after I heard, the next night after that first Theology of the Body I ever heard, we went to our Bible study group at the church we went to in Duluth, and it was this group of like 35 young adults. I'm like, you guys gotta hear this. And I'm like reading from the list. I'd never been trained, I was just reading from the outline. I'm like, so God can transform anything, and the power and all these things. And one of my friends was like, wow, that's good for you, because that obviously works for you, but some people are just wired differently. And what he was saying was, I'm too far gone. Like, I've seen too much, I've done too much, I've looked at too much porn, I've been all, and I've given myself way too much, I've let myself be trampled, I've done all these things. And that's that first half of the sentence that Jesus deals with. Yeah, I know you did, I saw. But I looked at it, and I don't have many moments of inspiration, ever, and you can tell. But I looked at it and said, wait a minute, you're telling me the God who spoke the world into existence, and raised the dead, multiplied food, and died, and then rose on his own power, and ascended into heaven, and sent the Holy Spirit, that you're too far gone for that God? And my friend was like, well, no. I'm like, then shut up! Just, why? Why do we not want to believe he can change us? And that's the beauty of, like, it doesn't, your past matters because it's what has brought you to tonight, but it is not your destiny. Your past is not your destiny. It may be who you are today, absolutely. But it's not where you're headed. And when we allow Christ in, say, I didn't know I was supposed to be Zakar. I didn't know that I'm supposed to bleed out for the Lord. I didn't know. But if that's true, then I'm going to do it. There's nothing he can't heal. I've seen addiction turn around. I've seen people, their entire lives healed. Like I told you guys last week, I've known a couple that the husband had been cheating for decades. And they went to Theology of the Body, and now they teach Theology of the Body. We just have to allow him to do that. And there's a scene in Scripture where his friend dies, Lazarus, and Jesus shows up days late, and they're mad at him, and he says, oh, just roll the stone away. And they say, no, we can't, it'll be a stench. And we do that with God. We say, nah, okay, I'll go to this RCIA thing, and I'll go to church on Sunday, and I'll do the things that I have to do, but you're not going in there, because there's a stench, and I know it. And all we need to do is roll that stone away. And what does Jesus do? Jesus says 3 words. Lazarus, come forth. And a rotting dead guy comes alive. And so for our lives, no matter what, no matter where your relationship is at, no matter what you've done, if you open yourself to God, if you become the bride of Christ first, and just open and be receptive to him, it takes 3 words and you're alive again. 3 words and you can heal. So that, we'll take we're close to 8 o'clock. We'll just let this be our 8 o'clock break. And we'll take 5 minutes, and then we'll go till 8:30 with some better stuff, so stay. Take a break.